you write a book like you build a house. You
Right.
start from the ground up, right? What is on page zero? What is on page one, right? What's your hook? And it's not going to be pretty. And then you just slowly grind it out. So I would say like the first week or two, it was rough. Like ugly words. I tried to draw pictures. It wasn't pretty. There wasn't like any process or routine. But like as soon as like after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you kind of build that momentum, then it becomes fun. You just like wake up, you're excited to do it. You start typing because you get all these ideas in your head when you're not writing that you're just like, man, I need to be writing this down now. And
I
then so it's fun.
Writing with authors, we're back. You see a familiar face if you're a mental health break listener as well. I'm excited to bring him on here after learning how much work he put in to getting his book completed. So, Clement, thanks for reconnecting and joining Writing with Authors this time.
Thanks for having me, Vincent. Stoked to
Oh,
be here. We'll have a good time
oh,
again.
we always do. Everyone out
Yeah.
there, this is Writing with Authors, a show I created on YouTube to bring a podcast to all book lovers, writers, and everyone in between. We've got a lot of shows in the queue, so be sure to check out some more after the show because there will for sure be a new book in your queue. For today, we are going to start right from the top. Hold that book up. Show us what we're working with.
Boom. Here's the bad boy. Bring it
All
nice and
right.
close.
Nice
Nice
and
and simple
close.
cover.
I love it. The idea space. Let's talk about what led you to actually start writing this book.
Yeah, great question. So this was like 5 years ago now, and I was just kind of sitting, grinding the 9 to 5 life, and I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and particularly there was an individual named Naval Ravikant who founded Angel List, and he's like a super guru. And he said something that's like fairly obvious, but it's like you got to do something that makes you money while you sleep so that you can free up your time. And everybody wants to kind of have that financial independence. And so I was like, all right, how am I going to do that myself? I could code, but wasn't the best. I've gotten a lot better since. And I read a lot. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I just try to write a book? So I wrote an outline and I started writing. And when I started writing, I wrote about things that withstood the test of time. So I was like, all right, let's start with math. Math is true, it'll forever be true. So we did that. And then the next aspect was physics. I didn't have, there was more for me to discover in physics. So I put that on the burner and looked at history next. And then
Okay.
after history, I learned enough about physics to come back to it and write about that. And so the first draft was like 700 pages and dwindled it down to the 300 pages we have now with a picture on every page.
So listen to that, everybody. The amount of cuts you make is real, and it's not that it's not good content. It has to be relevant to the storyline, make sense, keep the reader on track, not have them jumping around. Definitely want to give a tip out there. If you find yourself in this boat, copy that manuscript, make another document, come out with another version down the road, use it for social media, repurpose that content. Let's talk more deeply now. Is the book just divvied up into four parts? Or how is this? Because I know you mentioned the math, the physics. How does it combine?
Yeah, great question. And great tip. Yeah, don't be afraid to cut. So the first iteration of it was three parts: one math, one physics, one history. And then now it's kind of like a blend. It's like, well, what's the the silver lining in between all of those, right? What's the thread? And it was this concept of an idea space, which is kind of just a mental model for your mind based on science and physics. And so now it's just broken up by a couple chapters through something called the Path of Awakening. And the
Okay.
path of awakening essentially lifts veils of illusion, which are unknown unknowns that enter your idea space. So, for example, a good one is like clopen, this concept that something can be open and closed like the same time. Unlike doors, which are either open or closed, something can be clopen. Like a good like analogy is like a clarity pile. If you have your laundry somewhere that's like kind of clean, kind of dirty, you throw it in your clarity pile. Probably have a clarity chair or something. So that's kind of the breakdown of the book.
And I think that applies to even business with leads and how you go about your thing, where some of my business comes 8 months later, 9 months later from that initial reach out. And that's again one of the harder parts of entrepreneurship where you go and get a job for someone else, you're getting paid the same amount of money every single Friday. Where in entrepreneurship, it doesn't really happen that quickly. Excuse me. Even now with the podcast production company, I started negotiations like in November, December, and now they finally have their onboarding call next week. So don't give up, everyone. And the same thing applies with the book. it's going to take some time. He just mentioned this was over a 5-year process. How did you start in the beginning with getting yourself into a groove of creating writing goals, maybe, or getting in a consistent workflow where every week, every day, what have you, you're setting aside a time to write?
Yeah, good question. And I think for me it was easier because I decided to go on sabbatical. So
Okay.
instead of like working and trying to do this at the same time, I was like, all right, I just need to focus on this full time and
Mhm.
like really see what I want to do with my life. And so my morning, man, I love this time period of writing. It was the best. I would like wake up early, go rock climbing with one of my friends, get back at like 7, make some tea, kind of sit down. So like I don't smoke cigarettes, but I would chew nicotine gum because I heard it was like a nootropic to help you think.
Okay.
So I started chewing nicotine gum, read my textbooks in the morning, and then just got right into it. And you'd be surprised the first part's like making an outline and building some momentum. But once you build that momentum, the
Mhm.
story kind of writes itself. You know what I mean? Like you'll write something, and then after you're done writing for the day, you're like, all right, I'm exhausted. So you put a halt on it, and you're like, I don't really know what I'm going to write about the next day. Then ideas come in your mind. And then the next morning you wake up, and you're like, all right, let's do this all over again. I don't know.
Well,
Did you have a similar experience yourself?
of course, and you can't beat yourself up on not having that exact perfect thought today. We live in the digital age where you can copy and paste at any point, just get something down. I also resonate with the early morning writing. I do all of my ghost writing in the morning from about 3 to 5 a.m. Those are my first tasks, depending on what they are, how many books I'm doing. Right now, I think I only have, well, 3 left, but only 2 that I'm still doing writing on. So, of course, my books have to take a backseat to my clients. And I share this often now, and my big reason for launching Coming Alive podcast production is because I get more joy out of helping someone else get their pod out there, helping someone else get that book out there. As you know, describe that feeling when you got your first author copy.
Oh, dude, unreal. Like it just came in and like just holding it in my hands, I'm just like, oh, it's so pretty. It's so soft. And like there's like I feel like nowadays everything's digital, right? Like you don't even think about it, but just to be able to hold something that you created from like scratch, like an idea that was in your head and now it's like, oh, it's a real thing. I feel like I take it for granted just because like it's like I published it like in October last year.
Uh,
And now I'm just like I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a book, but like I never sit down. I'm like, oh snap. It's like I made this.
And
Um,
he 5 years went into just those 300 pages. Many writers out there have that same experience on their first book. Now he's got a process. He's going to streamline that process. Are we expecting book 2 at some point?
Honestly, I think so in the future. That's like because a lot of things in life, you don't know what you're doing the first time around, but then the second time around, you're like, all right, I know the exact process. You kind of skip some of the steps.
Mhm.
And then for first time authors, I would say like just write things down, like you said, copy paste it in. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Like that's what editing is for. As long as you can get like a flow of ideas going, then you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, again, you can copy and paste. My first book, I used to beat myself up with that, like staring at this chapter 10, 11, just like trying to get this magical piece, like forcing out of my brain. But that's not the way it works. It will come. And there is a lot of benefits of writing as it comes to you. You gain your patience, of course, you get creative. What was one of your favorite skill improvements that came out of finishing this book?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think just like knowing that I could build a quality product by myself.
I love
I
that.
think like working in the corporate world, like you're just working on other people's projects and you're not really doing anything for yourself. So just to be able to like spend all of the same time I would on something else and on myself and seeing that like, oh, like I can actually do something that's cool. Um, and then also to the point you were talking about writing things down, using ChatGPT nowadays, man, it's so helpful as like someone to listen that just listen to everything you want to say. So if you're stuck at somewhere, copy paste your section and be like, I'm trying to move forward with this, but I don't know what to do. ChatGPT gives you like 5, 10 options and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and I love that idea because ChatGPT is a great resource when you know how to use it. I use it for brainstorming for when I'm stuck, like you say. Um, I had someone who come into my circle about a year, what is it, June now, about a year ago, who were telling me that they plugged into ChatGPT to write this book, and they said, "Hey Vince, check this out." It was a friend, so I checked it out, and I read the first paragraph, and it was just improper synonyms and all of these things used because it is robotic. But the point is, the great point that you're making is that you're not alone on the writing journey. You're going to be alone at your computer, but you have someone else to rebound off. I don't use Word anymore because I have a Mac. I use Pages. I haven't really tried
Mm,
to find it, but I know in Word, a client told me it can phonetically read to you like every word you have. So I don't know if anybody out there is still using Word, but that is another great tip. When you were writing this book, though, right? When was like the turning point in momentum where you finally were like you were confident enough to like become like a daily routine, a weekly routine? Did it happen right away, or describe that for our audience who may be in that stuck point right now?
yeah, that's a good point. I think so. The first step for me was writing that outline just to like get
Right,
my thoughts on paper. But once that happened, it's like you write a book like you build a house. You
right.
start from the ground up, right? What is on page zero? What is on page one, right? What's your hook? And it's not going to be pretty. And then you just slowly grind it out. So I would say like the first week or two, it was rough. Like ugly words. I tried to draw pictures. It wasn't pretty. There wasn't like any process or routine. But like as soon as like after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you kind of build that momentum, then it becomes fun. You just like wake up, you're excited to do it. You start typing because you get all these ideas in your head when you're not writing that you're just like, man, I need to be writing this down now. And
I
then so it's fun.
I agree with you. I get most of my good, not most of my, I get a lot of great ideas when I'm in bed. When I'm getting ready to
Mm.
wind down, I'm a big sticky note guy. We're both whiteboard guys. You can see I was actually cleaning mine up today because it was too dirty. Big sticky note guy by my bed. I have a sticky note and pen. It was a tip. I can't remember who gave me the tip many years ago, but when I'm writing too, it's like on my mind. Once you get to that point where it is fun and it's not a chore and it's just part of your enjoyment each day, the ideas come flowing. Man, Clement, the time is flying by. We're having a great conversation. You've given a lot of great advice to writers already, so I don't really want to be repetitive here. For the purposes of this show, before we get your contact info, what is one more thing about your book we did not discuss yet that you want everybody to know about it?
Mm. I would say if you want to have your mind blown, just absolutely blown about how you view the world and how kind of like the veils of illusion that can be lifted, I think that's then definitely check it out.
I love it. Who would you say your target reader is?
Yeah, good question. I think there's kind of like a couple folks. So someone in a transition point in life trying to figure out what they're
Okay.
trying to do next. People who are scientifically curious.
Okay.
And then the last ones are mindfulness skeptics and mindfulness practitioners. So for the skeptics, it'll give them a scientific foundation to work on. And then the practitioners, it'll just deepen their practice.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much for taking the time to join another one of my podcast episodes. It's always a blast with you. Everyone, if you missed his mental health testimonial, be sure to hop onto that. He gave a lights out show. Where can we find you online?
Oh, you're too kind, Vincent. You're the man. I appreciate you. So best place to find me online is theideaspace.io. You can actually download the first chapter of my book for free. So check it out. If you like it, feel free to check out the whole thing.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. And everyone out there, go check out the first free chapter. Go show him some love online, especially if you're in his industries. He is a great resource to have. I am at Vincent A. Lancy on all social media, including this YouTube channel. If you enjoyed the show, please click subscribe and rate the show. Stay tuned for the next episode. We will keep them going as we can. Of course, this is not like the other shows that are weekly, weekly, weekly. These come and go to keep it fresh. But with that, we are signing off today from California all the way to Florida. Clement, thank you so much.
Peace.